All right, everybody, welcome to this weekend. Well, what a week it has been. It is great to see you guys here all on. I'm calling this show the pre show to the Super Bowl. For those of you who watch the Super Bowl or have, any kind of stakes in the Super Bowl, you'll have to let me know in the comments who exactly you want to win the Super Bowl, or if you even care about the Super Bowl or anything Super Bowl related, drop it in. We'll definitely get to that. Before we get to any news, of course, though, I want to welcome everybody here. I'll welcome everybody in chat here in one moment. But before I do that, I just want to welcome all the people watching on the replay. You guys make up about 75% of the audience. So you guys are absolutely awesome. And I absolutely love you guys. So great whether you're watching it live or on the replay. And I imagine there's more people on the replay tonight because some people do some kind of Super Bowl type events on the weekend. All right. So Mr. Red Taco was here nice and early, a whole 5 minutes before the show started. You know what they say, the early bird gets that first comment, right? And then we got Scott. Scott was in nice and early. I almost expected a ChatGPT joke from him, but he did not. He did not bring one this time. Afternoon, everyone. Let me none adulting begin. Oh, that goes to this because anyone about his keyboard. Keyboards are fun. Keyboards are those things that can let you say exactly what you don't want to say, especially if you have autocorrect. I've make it. And this is horrible in Apple phones. I hate autocorrect with a passion because when it changes something and I don't see that it's changed, it can completely change the whole meaning of what you were saying. And so that's the first thing I do. Every new phone I get, I turn off autocorrect. I don't mind it underlining misspelled words. I'll change those myself. But don't decide that when I said biscuit and I misspelled biscuit, that you actually thought I meant barmaid. I'm like, what? How is a biscuit a barmaid? Who knows? Nobody does. Tim Carroll is in the house. Hello, crew thumbs. And Mr. Red Taco says, so you don't like the song Final Countdown? I do like it. Europe is the group that does Final Countdown, and it's a really catchy song. It was actually on the Rocky IV soundtrack. Just a great song. Love the song. It's full of energy, and I would use that, Mr. Red Taco, but then I would get a copyright strike really fast. So just to put that out there, I can't even hum a bar of that song because if I were, you can get copyright strikes for like super crazy little things. Jill is in the house. Hey, hey. So, Jill is working on her next video. A little bit of technical issues that she's trying to figure a way to where she has the visual impairment. She's trying to find a way around that so that she can use a script. So right now we're trying to figure out a way to have something talk it to her so that she can then say it, just to make it a little bit easier for her when she's making her video. So her next video, we were hoping to get it out this week, but it may not be until next weekend. Speaking of next weekend, channel member video, the third one, it's dropping on Saturday. And I let the channel members decide what they wanted. And they want to see all the tools that I use when I'm doing my deep dives. So that's what Saturday's channel member video is going to be. If that's something you really want to see, jump down, subscribe, become a channel member, even if it's just for a month so you can catch that one video. I think it'll be worth it. So anyway, that's what's coming up for the channel members on Saturday. And we might even have two videos if Jill's is ready at the same time. We can drop that out as well. Let's see here. Scott says, I didn't know it was Super Bowl until I looked on Twitter this morning. Yep. I knew it was a Super Bowl because The Last of Us, I've been watching that, and they moved the episode up to Friday. So I got to watch it a couple days early because they didn't want to compete against the Super Bowl. So I was like, awesome. All right. Holy cow. We got a lot of people just popping around in here today. We got Brian McGrath in the house. Hello, Brian. Hopefully the West Coast is treating you fine. Mr. Red Taco says, I'm eating out. Shh, don't tell anyone. Okay. Where are you eating at, Mr. Red Taco? Is it a good restaurant or are you at like a Burger King or something? And Jordan's in the house. Hello. Jordan is one of the two that won a membership last month. We're going to be doing that again next week. So, you might find yourself a free membership popping your way. And if you get the free membership, you can go back and watch that tools video, right? So that's kind of cool. Also, while we're talking about that type of stuff, don't forget to hit that like button, because it really, really, really helps the algorithm. It basically, you hit it enough and more people will see that we're live right now. And, that's sometimes a great way to get some brand new folks to drop in. Scott, I can't find a joke. Uh-oh, here we go. Why did the football coach go to the bank? He wanted to get his quarterback. Oh, that's really bad, but it's awesome. I love the drier the joke. I love them. They're awesome. And a lot of that is, I was exposed to a lot of British humor growing up, and I really, really fell in love with British humor. Now, British humor kind of evolved into the dad joke thing, and so I love dad jokes. They're just really, really cool. And Jill laughed at that one, and Mr. Red Taco is, oh, Scott. Yeah, exactly. That was a good one. All right. Well, we got news as well. We're going to bring up some of that. The very first article that we're going to talk a little bit about today is this new healthcare plan. So the government, they finally have settled on something. They've offered $46.2 billion over 10 years. And that's basically to hand that out to the provinces in exchange. Now, they want something back. Now, the provinces in the past said they didn't want to give anything back, but I think this is doable. What they're looking for is better data keeping and sharing. Now, if you have moved between provinces, sometimes the data between different provinces' health sectors are not the greatest, especially if you're trying to get like your family doctor records or things like that. So this is not I don't think this is a bad demand. Now, how they plan to divvy it up is they're looking at, with the health transfers, just basically topping them up an extra $2 billion to every province. Then in addition to that, they'll have about 25 billion left. Excuse me. And they're going to dole that out to region-specific needs. Now, they weren't very specific what exactly that meant, but we definitely have to see. And we got Jay Borg in the house. Hello, Jay. Fantastic to see you. Jay was the very first channel member ever, so he's got that notoriety for that. And we got Scott back here. Don't blame me for that. It was all ChatGPT. Yes, good old ChatGPT. I can't wait to see what Google Bard jokes look like when we get a chance to do that. But we got a little bit on Google Bard coming up here in a moment. Our other main story is what the banana bread is going on with these flying objects. We started with a balloon. Now, here's the thing, and I think people don't understand that this is not this weather balloon was not, or spy balloon, whichever it was, the one that came from China. It's not a small balloon. It's not like the size of a balloon at a birthday party. We're talking a very big balloon. It's closer in size to a hot air balloon than it would be to a child's party balloon. So we're, because it's carrying a lot of stuff on it, equipment. So we're talking big. So when we talk about these other objects, these cylindrical objects that they have no clue what they are, they're smaller than that, but they're still pretty big. From what I heard, the actual object side is closer to the size of a small car. So that's actually pretty big. But what the heck are they? We don't have the data. I've heard lots of people speculate. I was watching a news briefing yesterday, and holy banana bread, one reporter actually asked if they were extraterrestrial. If they were extraterrestrial, we wouldn't have been able to shoot them down. But here's the thing about shooting these things down. These missiles that they fire at the balloons, or these objects, they're not cheap. They're pretty, you're talking six figures. Now, I think Kevin this morning was saying something about 200,000. I don't know if he's right on that, but that wouldn't surprise me. So that's a lot of money just to shoot these things down. But at the same time, if it's spy stuff, then we need to do that. We need to figure out what the heck those things are. So I don't know. So like I said, that's why the topic today was healthcare is up and objects are down. So we've had two of these objects shot down. One in the middle of the Yukon and the other just off the coast of Alaska. And of course, there was that big balloon that we had with China. Now, this does not mean, and it's easy to sort of draw the conclusion that because the balloon was from China, so are these. It's not necessarily that. I think until they've had a chance to recover, the wreckage or whatever's left of them, that's when we'll find out exactly what these things are, and maybe we'll figure out where they come from. But yeah, they're not extraterrestrial. I don't think they're anything to really worry about. It could even be the situation where you've got somebody who's just having some fun by releasing these things into the airspace. It's not a good way to have fun because these things were basically in at that level of height where they would actually be a threat to aviation. So that's just something to keep in mind with those things. We should hopefully hear more this week. I'm kind of interested. Maybe we'll see some more. What do you guys think these things are? Like, even if you got wild theories, throw them out there. I'm kind of curious to hear what you guys think. And do you think we're going to see more? We've had 2 in just over the weekend. Will we see more this week? Is there going to be a plague of unknown objects just, floating around up there? Who knows? We'll have to see. I'm kind of thinking that we're probably not going to see too many more. We may see one more, maybe, but I don't think it'll turn into an epidemic. But hey, you guys let me know what you guys think, because that would be kind of cool. All right. Now, let me see here. Mr. Red Taco says, well, I doubt it says made in China on it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it would be funny. It would actually be funny if it did say made in China, but it was just a regular balloon that anybody could buy anywhere. So now Tim says there were 3 shot down. Now, was that in addition to the weather? Like they shot down the weather balloon and then they shot down the 2 objects. If there was a third, and maybe there was, I haven't heard about it yet. So Tim, if there's been a third in addition to the weather balloon, just clarify that for me, because that's pretty interesting. Holy banana bread. Woo! Now, another story that we have on the go is the Canadian job market. So we had a report come out this week that basically in January, Canada added 150,000 new jobs. That's significant because they were estimating that we were going to add 15,000 jobs. So we basically added 10 times what was expected. So what's good about this? There's good and there's bad. The good is simply that because that job market is so strong, it really makes it difficult for us to have a recession. So the chances of a recession keep getting smaller with things like this happening. Now, the bad news, and that has to do with persistent inflation. And that's something the Bank of Canada, even though they said, well, okay, we're going to put a pause, they also said if the situation changes, we can take that pause back. This is a situation right now where jobs are not going down. So that's going to hurt and make it harder for inflation to go down. Also, wages were up 4.5% year over year in January, and that's still a little high. And they want to see that coming down. And so far, it hasn't really come down as much as they want. So it's going to be difficult for us to get inflation down. So what does that mean? Does that mean we're going to all of a sudden get a new rate hike? Has the pause kind of been canceled before it even happened? That we're going to have to see, and we'll have to sort of pay attention to what happens. But I can tell you this, the Bank of Canada is looking at that jobs number and they're not happy about it. So it could be a bad thing. So especially if you're one of those people that right now is buried in debt and you're not looking for more interest, this could be a bad thing. All right. Now, Tim said there were 3. Okay, so they have shot down 3 in addition to that. Holy banana bread. See, I missed the third one. It must have happened. I was editing tomorrow's video all day, so it probably happened while that happened because, I wasn't very much on the web. Oh, and Crypto Larvae says, yeah, there were 3 in total. I think 2 more today. Holy banana bread. If there were 2 more today, that would make 4. Okay. No, Tim's saying that it was just 1 balloon and 2 objects. So we'll have to take a look at it. And Bill says, China has been spying on us for decades. Read Claws of the Panda. It outlines their influence campaign at every level of government. And yeah, absolutely. China has been absolutely spying on us. I mean, if you guys remember recently, they had those little spy shops that they were shutting down that China had within Canada. So China, they're spying on us. It's spying is kind of a normal thing. Interestingly enough, speaking of spying, if you work at home, your employer may actually be spying on you. There is some spyware that a lot of employers are starting to sort of get into, and I know there's legislation that's being looked at over how much an employer can spy on you at home. And a lot of it is that employers are worried about productivity. Like they're thinking, okay, I want to check and see what you're doing. Make sure you're actually working and not doing the laundry, that type of thing. So it's interesting to see how this is all going to work out. But yes, Bill is absolutely right. China has been spying on us for years, and we've been spying on them, or in the U.S. more than anybody else. Everybody spies on everybody, but it's kind of interesting. It seems to me that if this was a spy balloon that went awry, why would they then send in these other ones that they wouldn't? If anything, they would try to change their tactic so it wouldn't get caught. That's to me what I would think. That's why I don't think they're from China. So we will have to see. All right. So we talked last week about Apprentice Bard. Now it's just Bard. So Google Bard. And they did that big presentation I mentioned to you guys about last week. I said on Wednesday they were gonna talk about it, and they did. And oh dear, Bard made a huge mistake in the launch event. So basically, the mistake was, because I know a lot of newspapers are like, "Oh, Bard made a mistake," and they don't tell you what the mistake is. Here's what the mistake was. So Bard said that the James Webb telescope took the first pictures of a planet outside of our own solar system. Now, that's absolutely not true. So the actual correct answer, like the first time we got a picture of another planet, was all the way back in 2004, and that was done by the Very Large Telescope Array down in Chile. So interestingly enough, because Bard completely botched this question that shouldn't have been a hard one, they should have easily been able to verify their data. That caused Google stock to drop by 7.68%. So putting that into numbers, 7.68% drop in terms of Google is about $120 billion of just market value erased because Bard decided to give this crazy answer. So that's kind of interesting. All right. And Mr. Red Taco says, well, He's me. He says, well, if China is spying on me, I hope they find me interesting. Me too. Me too. It's like if I knew that if I knew that China had a spy camera in my room, I'd put on a show, just sing some crazy songs to make it almost sound like their code so that, all of these people in China will be trying to figure out the code. But yeah, it would be kind of fun to really mess with the Chinese that way. And Mr. Red Taco says, only 120 billion. Only? Yeah, I know. Keep in mind, some of these major corporations, they don't live in the same financial world that we do. So, for them, yeah, it's only 120 billion. And it's like, wow. I mean, I don't know about you, but I do not expect to see $1 billion in my life. Unless something miraculous happens. And we're talking really miraculous. So that's kind of interesting. Now, we were talking a little bit about that ChatGPT. Here's an interesting little stat that also came out about robots. So in 2022, North American companies actually increased their orders for robots by 11%. So robots are coming in. They're taking over the jobs. Well, 11% of the jobs, apparently. And keep in mind, these are not like, I am a robot. I am here to take over your job. These are like more or less automation, like a little thing that just does, a little arm that does a little, maybe a rivet every couple seconds. So, but anyway, they are happening. It's, it's out there. And that's kind of neat. Now we also need to talk a little bit about oil, but before we do that, I am going to just see here. Mr. Red Taco says, I'd eat poutine in front of the camera, figure out the Canadian code. Mwahaha. Yeah, get the Chinese people wondering, what is this? Why is he pouring stuff on the American French fry? So that would be kind of, and that's actually a funny saying because, French makes you think of France. But anyway, China trying to crack the banana bread code. Oh, nobody can crack the banana bread code. It's coded too well. It's all about the batter, I think. But anyway, so some oil news. So the price of oil, as you know, we were talking a little bit about how it had been tanking. And the reason it had been tanking was simply because, China had so much of it in reserves now that, they weren't buying as much as normal. That was causing oil to depress. Well, we've now got some bullish news for oil. So Russia has announced that starting in March, they're going to reduce their output by 500,000 barrels per day. And basically, the reason they're doing this is that they don't want to sell oil to anybody who has endorsed the non-oil cap. So if your country is saying, "Yeah, Russia, we're you got that oil cap, we're following it," then forget it. They're not getting oil from Russia. So, places like China, India, they'll still get the oil because they're not following the cap. But so that will reduce the amount in the market a little bit. So that might cause, March to be a stronger month for oil. We'll have to take a look and see how that's going. I know even towards the end of this week, oil was a little bit stronger. Like we're back, we were at one point, we were down around $74 a barrel. We're back up around 78, 79. So we're, oil's going to get interesting, I think. It'll be a fun one to watch as we sort of take a look at how things are going. Mr. Red Taco says, Banana Bread Code, it's like the caramel secret. No one knows. I used to love those commercials, how do they get the caramel inside the caramel bar? Or how do you get the soft, creamy caramel inside the caramel bar? I thought those were really cool. I don't really see commercials that much anymore, but although a funny commercial story, the Danters were mentioning that when they watched my Canadian Tire video last Thursday, they got a commercial for Canadian Tire on it. And I just thought that was really funny. So interestingly enough, Canadian Tire sometimes puts Canadian Tire commercials on Canadian Tire videos. Well, that would be kind of cool. And Mr. Red Taco says, so wouldn't that make oil prices spike? Yes. Tentatively. I mean, keep in mind, it's still a big dance. I mean, if that 500,000 cut, and the fact that OPEC, and here's the thing, OPEC had their last meeting and they decided to keep their cut going. So, because they're already in a reduced output. So now Russia's done that after that. So there is a chance we'll see some oil spikeage, I think. That will definitely be good for anybody invested in the oil sector. Any of you who are sitting on a bunch of, Torlamine stocks because of all of the special dividends, well, if the profits start going through the roof again, some of those special dividends might be very nice. So we'll have to sort of see how that is all going to work out. If you're playing an inverse oil, just be careful because when this starts to happen, sometimes these can happen really fast, and you can get yourself in the hole pretty darn fast with some of them inverse ETFs. So that's one of those things just to keep in mind. That's not going to be good with carbon tax going up April 1st either. Oh, good old carbon tax. Yeah, especially if we, let's take a worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is that all of these strong job markets cause the Bank of Canada to reverse on the pause, and they put a rate hike, and then you get the carbon tax, and then you get oil going up. That's kind of like a little bit of a perfect storm. Perfect storm that could certainly not be great for your pocketbook. So let's hope that doesn't happen. I'm hoping the Bank of Canada, at least, I would like to see them at least give us that one pause, even if it's just one cycle, and then they come back in if they really have to. But I would give us that pause just to see if things are working, because normally when you do a rate hike, it takes a while for it to completely filter into the system to see the full effects of it. So that's what I would like to see. But, it really will be interesting to see what kind of other reports that we're getting out between now and then. So that will be good. Mr. Red Taco, good for some, not good for everyone else. Yeah, good for people invested in oil, not good for anybody with debt or anybody who does a lot of driving. Let's see. I think the Bank of Canada gives us at least March pause, and I hope you're right. I hope you're right, Scott. I'm leaning in that direction, but I can understand some of the fear that's starting to pop up, and I can understand how the Bank of Canada is looking at those job numbers and going, "Oh my God." But I think it's possible to, navigate this whole thing and get inflation down without going absolutely crazy. But I know that in the US in the 70s, they paused too soon, and that caused, well, it pretty much caused a runaway inflation, and things got pretty bad. And then you've probably heard the term Paul Volcker. That was basically, Paul Volcker was the Fed at that time, came in and dropped an insane rate hike on people just to try to stop what was happening. We're not in a situation, I think, where we'll get it, because I know for a fact the likelihood is that the Fed in the U.S. is going to, hold their rate hikes probably one or two more times at least, maybe more. We have to see what is going to happen. All right, and Sociable says, I got laid off in December. What job numbers? Yeah. It's not great if you got laid off. And I think a lot of the jobs that are out there is if you got laid off from, say, a white collar job, or, there's a lot of blue collar minimum wage type stuff out there. And that's kind of a difficult thing. Like if you're on EI right now and you're making more on EI than, going to McDonald's and asking somebody if they want fries with that, well, you're not going to do it. Unless you're really desperate. And there might be a situation that you could look at in the past. Could you please review oil price last 2 weeks? Okay, I can do that. Give me 2 seconds. All right. I'm just gonna share a screen with you. All right. And here, this way here we can get bigger oil. So this is the oil chart right now. This is on the 30 minutes. Give me a second. Let me put it back to, got to do it to the day. Oh, holy banana bread. Just give me a second. I'm just going to cycle this down a little bit. All right. So this is what we have been looking at, and we only want to do, 2 weeks? So you know what? I'm just going to actually go to the 4 hour, and we'll make this a little bit bigger so we can sort of see it. All right. So here's the 4 hour. Now this back here, this is January, so mid-January. So in mid-January, as you can see, we came down. We had been absolutely crashing for a long time. And it wasn't until, February 23rd. Let's take a look at this. Oh, wait a minute. Where am I at? Boop, 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 boop. It helps if I'm in the right year, doesn't it? So here's February 23rd of, what year is that? Of 23. All right. Well, we're just going to look at it. So these are the 4 hours. So I don't think the dates are a little weird. Now the dates on this thing as well are, I believe, Greenwich Mean Time. But we came through this whole, and this is on the 4 hour candles. We came through this big drop, and now we're sort of rebuilding again. So this is what's been nice, for anybody who has oil stocks. So you can see we were down around $73 a barrel, as I was mentioning. And that was about midweek. Now we're all the way back up to, 79. That's where we closed. So with some of the stuff with Russia, I expect on Monday, I really think what's going to happen is, give me a second. I'm going to grab some lines here. Didn't really want that line, but I'm going to grab from here. Yeah. Come on, lines. Here we go. There we go. All right. Come on. Oh, dear Banana Bread. This thing can sometimes be a pain. All right, I got it this time. All right. So right now we kind of got this overall trend going up. Now these here, these are the moving averages. It's actually an indicator called smooth moving average. So a lot of times, if you're a swing trader or you're looking to day trade, the best time to play something going up is after it has crossed these. So these have just crossed our moving averages, the three of them, and we've closed just above it. So that actually means that there's some good chance that we can get continued movement up. And so that's what I'm thinking is going to happen, especially when we look at what has happened with oil and with Russia. So I'm thinking we're going to see more movement up. Whoops. So I think it's going to move up. It's not going to move up in a straight line. You'll probably move up, down, up, more of a step thing. I think that's probably going to be the rest of February. And then we'll sort of see how that's going to look when we get to March. But yeah, so that's kind of what's happening with that. While we're in here, let's just take a quick look at Bitcoin. Why not? All right, and here's Bitcoin. Bitcoin is back down to 21, and you can kind of see here. Here's one of these averages right here. So we're trying to get back above these. Now we did. Whoops, I'm gonna pull this all in together here for a bit. We did have this nice little run for a while, and now we're back down, and we're kind of retesting some of these averages. So you can see how they're really spread right now. If this holds and this continues to go back up, and if it can get on the other side of this, then we're probably looking at a pump as well for those of you who are looking into the Bitcoin, or at the very least, we'll get above it and maybe move a bit more sideways. So that's kind of neat when it comes to all of these things. But anyway, that was just a quick little side note on oil and where that's going to go. So like I said, it does look to me like it is going to go up. And whoops, so there we are once again. And gold as well. When we look at gold, it's going to pull gold in really well. You can start to see with gold has come up a big amount. This has been gold. It has been on a big upward trajectory. And now we've just recently broke back down over the last part of last week. So gold had some major drops, but now we're starting to get a little bit more of some resistance. And if we can get back up, then gold should be fine. But if gold actually drops below this last band, then we might flounder around for a little bit. But I'm still bullish overall on gold. Anything that comes from the ground, pretty much, I'm pretty bullish on, especially with the Canadian natural resource sector. Speaking of natural resources, and let me get rid of this here. All right, there we go. So speaking of natural resources, tomorrow's video is actually all about natural resources. We're going to look at 7 stocks that have they've just had some really insane growth over the last 3 years. So that's what you can look forward to tomorrow. I think it's pretty darn good. Actually, it was last week that somebody in this chat asked me about the natural resources and finding some of them. So I went out and I found some good stocks. All right. And let's see. IT investment back. I am bullish on IT. They could still have another drop, though. They've got a lot of problems still in IT that have to be worked out before they're going to really start moving up. One of the problems is some of the chip supply, but that's starting to all get worked out. And the move away from Chinese chips, there's more places that are being opened in the West where chips are being looked at. So, and that's also good for the Canadian sector, because I know the U.S. military wanted to put money into the Canadian sector to get some of those materials out. So IT, be patient, but buy-wise, IT is in a great spot because it's nice and low. When IT gets past the issues that we're having now and starts to boom again, then look out. Tesla, for example, people have made an insane amount off of Tesla because here's the thing, and here's part of the reason why people made so much money off of Tesla. Going into the end of the year, Tesla was one of those companies that people were short selling. So people were shorting it People were selling it for tax loss harvesting. And then we rolled into the new year, and Tesla was lower than it really should have been. And everybody could see that. And all that money that people sold, well, the tax loss harvesting, they need to put it somewhere. And it's like, oh my God, I can get Tesla at that price. So much money started flowing back into Tesla. And that's why we had such a huge explosion with Tesla. And any of you who were playing that new Purpose ETF, so the YTSL, holy banana bread, that the last ex-dividend, you made some money. And that's awesome. And I'm pretty bullish on that again for this time around. So pay attention to Tesla. Tesla is that company. I won't bet against Tesla because, yeah, they have that wild card that's Elon, but Tesla, I just will never bet against them because every time they have been down and out for the count, they've come back. And they've come back full force. So I'm pretty bullish still on Tesla. All right. Now, Tim says, hit that thumbs up button. Absolutely. It really helps the algorithm. It gets people to know that I'm live. And it also just makes YouTube pretty happy, which is a good thing. Oh, okay. Understood. Just telling I got laid off from IT and investment bank. Yes, IT. That's the downside. That's one of those situations where you need to sort of start looking at, well, here's the thing though. Just because IT is down right now, I would even start looking at companies perhaps that focus a little more towards AI. You might be able to find something and keep applying because here's the thing. There's a lot of people out there that look at it and say, oh, tech is laying off. Tech is laying off. There's no chance that I'm going to get a job. And well, if a lot of people are just giving up and you're that one that didn't give up, you never know. You might get lucky. Hopefully you do. I'd love to see you come in here next week and say, guess what? I got a job. That would be fantastic. Paul says, hey, everybody. Hope you had a great weekend. Same for you, Paul. Hopefully everything is going well. Now, I asked about the Super Bowl earlier. If any of you guys were, doing anything for the Super Bowl or had any winners or anything like that, nobody said a thing. And it might just be that we're in that investment community. Most of us are like, the Super Bowl, does it have money? Does it have stocks? So definitely interesting. Now, I did hear a statistic the other day. Now, I didn't write this one down. I wish I had, but apparently the stock market likes it. I think is it the AFC? When the AFC wins, the stock market goes up a little bit. Anyway, look that up. If anybody knows that statistic, throw it in the chat, please, because I'm kind of curious to know about that one. But I heard that I think on Yahoo Finance Live the other day. Wish I'd written that one down because that would have been a really good point to have here. Now, crypto. Since we were talking a tiny bit about crypto, there have been a lot of layoffs in crypto. So Crypto.com, since the beginning of the year, has laid off 2,500 people. Coinbase has laid off 2,500 people. Kraken has laid off 1,250. And we'll talk about Kraken again here in a second. Luno, 500. Blockchain.com made 400 layoffs. And Gemini did 200. So, the layoffs are out there. Now, Kraken, they have angered the SEC. So the SEC began a probe earlier in the week, claiming that Kraken had unregistered securities. Well, they have reached a settlement. I don't have the full deals of the settlement, but I have the one part that really was interesting. Kraken is no longer allowed to do any kind of staking. So if you've got Polkadot over on Kraken, you can't stake it. They're going to lose a lot of people. If you've got a stakeable coin and you're on Kraken and you can't stake it, well, you're going to move. So Kraken is probably going to lose some customers. And Kraken is also one of those ones that I'm a little concerned. Of course, the safest place if you do have crypto is in your hardware wallet. I've said that so many times, but hopefully, I think everybody gets that now because of everything that's happened. So now those were layoffs there. Disney is also doing layoffs. Disney's laying off 7,000 workers, and they're going to restructure to boost profits and cut costs. Now, here's an interesting thing. Did you know that Disney Plus loses $10 billion a year? And interestingly enough, just recently they lost 2.4 million subs because of a recent price hike. So, but one thing you do have to take into consideration is when Disney decided to do Disney Plus, they anticipated losing a lot of money for a good while amount of time before they become profitable. I think, and I could be wrong on this, correct me if anybody knows, correct me on this. I think they were hoping to get profitable by late 2024. So we'll have to see. Let's see. Super Bowl has numbers. Yeah, okay. All right, fair enough. Oh, okay, and a $30 million fine. Yeah, I just didn't hear the detail on what the fine was. All right, so that's kind of interesting. A little story on pandemic aid. So there's a group in Canada, they're called the Canadians for Tax Fairness. Now, they have alleged that 37 corporations in Canada took pandemic supports and then used that money for share buybacks, purchasing more dividends, and some of their acquisitions. Now, they didn't provide any names, so right away, if you're not willing to give the names, it's very hard to take anything they say seriously. And I don't think the government is paying too much attention, but it was interesting to see because they did say this, and it wouldn't surprise me if that were true. So, what can you say? Sociable says, would you like to talk about what assets to hold in an RRSP, thinking of restructuring? Sure, absolutely. So here's the thing. Your RRSP is your strategic account. So you should be definitely filling up your TFSA more than your RRSP until you get into a situation where you need to take advantage of those tax breaks. Because here's the thing. Let's say you're not making a lot of money. And if you were to put all of that money into your TFSA, you're not going to hit your limit by the time you retire. In that case, if you would put that money into your RRSP, well, all of a sudden you've got income that you're carrying into retirement, and that could affect, for example, getting the guaranteed income supplement. I think in that case, you're probably not worried about clawbacks, but there are different factors like that. But now there are some stocks that you should probably put in your RRSP, and most of that is if you have an American dividend stock. Here's the reason. With an American dividend stock, if you put it in your TFSA, it will have a 15% withholding tax on your dividends, and you will not get those back. And the reason for that is that the US does not recognize the TFSA as a registered account. They only recognize the RRSP. So for tax-wise, American dividends, you want to put them in, well, actually one of two places. You could also put them in your personal if you really want to. Because in your personal, you'll still get charged at 15%, but you'll get it back. But keep in mind, if you put it in personal, you are going to be paying capital gains and all of that fun stuff. So the best way to pay absolutely no taxes on American dividend is throw it into your RRSP. Now, if you have American growth stocks, those are awesome for your TFSA. And, well, pretty much anything else. Anytime you have a REIT, any kind of a REIT stock, you want to put that into either the TFSA or your RRSP. But the big thing to do is look at what you're making, look at what you're able to invest, and keep in mind too, when you're doing this, every year your TFSA is going to grow. Like this year it was 6,500. So it's going to keep getting bigger. So I would almost anticipate when you're just playing with your numbers, use that 6,500 tentatively. Just going forward to sort of see what you can fit in there, because everything that you fit into there, it just becomes absolutely tax-free. Now, I did mention strategic. So if you're in a situation where you really need to lower your income, so let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, you don't want to pay in the bracket that you're in. You could certainly lower it to get into a lower bracket if need be. But the way it works is that when you move into a higher bracket, only the stuff in that higher bracket gets taxed at that new rate. All the stuff in the earlier brackets get taxed at whatever rate is on those earlier brackets. So it doesn't help you as much there. But one place, and I mentioned this as well on the weekend, is if you're in a situation where you've hit 65, you've retired, and you're making just a little bit too much to get the GIS. Well, in a case like that, you want to start contributing into that RRSP for the first, for those first 10 years, for those first 5 years, technically 6, because the RRSP doesn't turn into a RIF until you're 71. So basically, well, technically you'll be 72 because it changes at the end of the year on your 71st year. So if you're born in January, you get an entire whole year of 71 where you can still put things into your RRSP. But once it turns into a RIF, then you can't. And at that point, it's going to start getting doled out as income. So that was a very long, convoluted answer. But if your TFSA has tons of room, use that first. Use your RRSP strategically and use it for American dividend stocks. That would be my answer. Whew. All right. So not yesterday, this week as well, the Federal Reserve Governor, so his name is Christopher Waller, he came out and he actually said that the fight is not over and that they could ultimately result in even higher rates than what the markets are anticipating. So that's really, really interesting. So, the Fed is kind of looking, I think they looked at them job numbers as well. And the market is anticipating right now a 25 basis point hike at the next meeting. So there is a possibility if they were to go to a 50, then the market's going to absolutely tank, for probably the rest of that day, maybe into the next day before, people start to calm down a little bit. So keep that in mind. Crypto Larvae says, have you ever looked into the low market cap company Altus Motor Vehicles, AMV? No, I have never looked at AMV, but that's going to be one of these ones I'm going to write down and take a quick gander at it. There we go, because it's interesting. There were some stocks. I'll tell you this. There was a stock that's in tomorrow's video that if you had bought this stock 3 years ago, you would be looking at a 4-digit return. Not a 1%, not a 10%, not 100%, but we're looking in the thousands. So it's just amazing what you can do sometimes with some of these lower stocks, but they come with a lot more risk. That's one of the reasons anything under $1 is technically a penny stock. And some people will even call something under $5 a penny stock, but technically under $1 is a penny stock. You want to be really, really careful when you're playing a penny stock. You want to play it with money you can absolutely afford to lose, because the problem with penny stocks is, you can get some really big returns on them, but you can just as easily get some really big losses and really fast. There's nothing worse than putting $1,000 into a penny stock and look at it an hour later and you've only got $500 and it just never comes back. So that can happen with penny stocks, but the opposite can happen. You can put in 1,000 and an hour later you've got 2,000. Now, if you did that, so if you put money in a penny stock, let's say you put $1,000 in and you came back an hour later and you had 2,000, well, take 1,000 out right away. And that way the remaining 1,000 that's there, that's just free money, right? You're no matter what, you're going to break even if that completely went to zero. And if it continues to go up, cool, more profits. Or if it falls, let's say it fell and it went down to 500, well, it's still profit. You take that 500 out then at that point and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm still up $500. So it's definitely one of those simple things. And yes, absolutely. Penny stocks are similar to altcoins. Basically, when I say this, I don't mean like your big names, like your Ethereum, your Polkadot, or your Solana. But when you get these new coins that pop up, it's very much like playing that. And some people, I think some of you in the community know who the friggin' Oracle is. But he's pretty good at sometimes finding some of these brand new ones, jumping in, putting a ton of money down, and making a bank load on it. So he's really good at that. Me, that's a little bit above my risk level because I tend to fall a little bit more on the conservative side. With day trading, I do make some riskier moves, but I most of the stuff that I day trade is that if it goes horribly wrong, I'm not going to be wiped out. I'm going to take a hit. and I'll have to work hard to get out of the hole I created, but it's not going to be something where, like if I'm playing, let's say I put some shares into Manulife Financial. I know that Manulife Financial is not going to just go to zero. So it's one of those things. But here's the problem with day trading is that to play bigger stocks, you kind of need the capital to do it, or at least get into some leverage to do it. And I don't recommend getting into leverage. Play with little money first. Heck, don't even play with money. Just play with simulators first before you get into anything like that at all. Let's see, better to be right side up on the upside down. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It never hurts to take profits off the table. And here's one of those things. Sometimes with new traders, they'll come in and they'll look and they'll be like, oh my God, look at this. My stock is up. I've just made $100. And they take it off the table and they got their $100 and they're happy. And then they look at the stock again. They're like, oh no, it's now 200. I could have had 200 if I left it alone. And they then start beating themselves up. And then what ends up happening is if you let something like that really, really bug you, the next time you come along, you're like, oh, I got that 100. I'm not taking it. I remember last time I missed out on that 200 and it falls back down 110. And all of a sudden you're 10 in the hole, or even bigger. So every situation is separate. If you have taken some profits off the table, it is a successful trade. It doesn't matter how many more profits you could have had. The fact is you made money. You're ahead of the game than when you were when you started. So that's kind of that attitude. You really have to kind of take it in. The whole could have, should haves, and it's kind of like, well, it's like the YTSL. When we were on ex-dividend day, they had a massive yield and I was looking at it and I knew Tesla had an earnings call that night. And I really thought that was going to go well, that Tesla earnings, but I wasn't 100% sure. So I put a fair amount on, but I wanted to go all in. I really did, but I wasn't going to, just because, it wasn't a sure thing. So I didn't. Logic, of course, held out. But the next day, when all of a sudden, it's like, I made, $200 in dividends and I made close to $1,000 just from the change in price of those shares. I was like, oh my God, if I'd gone all in, I would have made an incredible amount of money. But it's one of those things where it's like, you can't really beat yourself up about it, because what if you went all in and that Tesla share meeting was awful? All of a sudden, you're still getting your dividends. Wonderful. But the share price could have totally tanked and you could have been like, stuck with those shares. Either take the loss and wipe out what you've made on the dividends, or that money is pretty much tied up in Tesla for a while until it recovers. So you're kind of left with a couple of options like that. So it's one of those reasons that it can be a little bit dangerous. So when we talk about and that's what I call dividend capture strategy. Dividend capture strategy is really, really risky in a bear market. It's still risky in a bull market, but recovery time tends to be better and you tend to not get stuck with something for like a week. So you tend to be able to move things a little bit better. You still want to do all your due diligence and you still want to, not be trading money that you can't have access to for a week, because, it just, it's kind of the way the market is. You want to be careful. You want to be, you want to be really diligent with what you're doing, and logic is a great thing. All right. Now I actually still have some news stories. I've only got 2 news stories left. So a $6 billion project has been approved by regulators for a company called Everwind. They're based out of Nova Scotia, and they're going to build a green hydrogen production hub in Point Tupper, Nova Scotia. And here's the beautiful thing. Germany's already said they'll buy that hydrogen. And and they're anticipating having the first barrels of hydrogen basically hit in Germany by 2025. So that's kind of cool to see that we got that green hydrogen. Now, I think in Point Tupper, where they went, there was an oil refinery as well as a shipping terminal, and they bought both of those that they could convert into basically into their factory so they can get this all out and shipped. So that's going to be really, really kind of cool. Now, this here is, I know there's also another one in Newfoundland that is also being, I don't know if it's been approved yet or not, but green hydrogen is looking like it's going to be a big export for Canada. So we'll have to see how that goes. And our final story is about the CBC. So the CBC has said that within 10 years, their plans are to go exclusively digital. So they're looking at, well, two reasons. One, right now, the only people who watch the CBC tend to be over 50. That tends to be their big demographic. I would argue with that because, I mean, I know during hockey, you get a lot of younger people watching the CBC, but so they're looking at trying to gain back some younger audience. And by going digital, they believe they have a better shot at that. So, you know, there'll be no more CBC television in about 10 years. So that's going to be really interesting. So, yeah, goodbye CBC, or not goodbye. You'll still have the CBC. It'll be just a little bit different, I guess. So, well, that's kind of an interesting thing with the good old CBC. Okay, so what have I got coming up this week? So once again, tomorrow I have that video on the resource sector. So 7 stocks that have done really, really well. So they're going to be coming out. And well, Jill just says, actually, right here. Actually, their audience fairly spread out amongst all the age groups. And it's a long-term plan. Absolutely. Yeah, the article I had read said that most of their main demographic. So yeah, there's probably people younger, but their main demographic is the 50 plus. So, and that kind of makes sense. You know, most people who are younger are probably just watching Netflix, and you know, maybe they tune in for hockey or something like that, or the Olympics when they have the Olympics. But yeah, that is the CBC for us. So once again, this week, yeah, we're going to do the natural resources. Thursday, I got to do a deep dive. I don't know who yet. Do you guys have a company that you would like? Let's do a Canadian company, a little bit bigger, maybe, that I haven't done before. If you guys want to drop that in the chat, maybe I will grab one of those. And here's the interesting thing. I'm going to actually use making of that video to help make the Saturday video for the channel members, because we're going to do that whole. These are the tools I use. So I'm going to show them exactly every tool I make in the process of making Thursday's video. So that's going to be kind of cool. All right. So I'll tell you here right now, I've been leaning towards a National Bank for Thursday. But if you guys have a company you really want to see, drop that for me in chat, and we'll look at that, because that maybe there's a better option than National Bank. Now, National Bank has had some interesting growth, and that's kind of the reason I wanted to touch on them. But you know, we'll have to see how that turns out. Any thoughts on Dragonfly? Dragonfly. I've never heard of Dragonfly, but now I have to look this up. So you guys always give me some good stuff to take a look at. So I'm like, all right, Draganfly. I'll take a look at Dragonfly. Canada Goose or Artesia. You know what? I had another request for Artesia a couple weeks ago. So maybe Artesia. That's a problem. You know what? Yeah. All right. So here we go. Artesia. That is who we will do that deep dive on for Thursday. Because once I've got 2 people saying please, then I'm like, okay, yeah, let's get that done. Whew, that's going to be great. All right. What else have I got coming up? We also have Jill's video. Like I said, I'm not sure exactly when that will be coming out. It depends on what we're working on. A couple of different options with the filming. And then I have to fit it into my editing schedule. And that's one of the thoughts I had earlier today was I can't wait to get an AI system on my actual computer that can do the editing for me. That's kind of the dream now. Now that I've seen how far AI has come, I'm like, come on, it's not that far to get an AI that will actually edit everything for me. And then I can make more videos because I wouldn't have to do any of the editing. Like if I didn't have to do any editing at all, I could make more videos. Like you take a look at some of the big American ones, like a Graham Stephan, who makes like I think he makes like a video every single day. Well, if he was doing all of his own editing, he wouldn't be making a video every single day. And I don't think I want to get to a point where I make a video every single day, but um, you know, sometimes I get a great idea and it's like, where can I fit it in? So it'd be nice to be able to just get a great idea, throw out a bonus video for it. And so that's what AI hopefully will do. All right. Well, we're coming up towards the end here, guys. Hopefully, hopefully you guys all have a fantastic night. And hopefully if you are into the Super Bowl, it's one of your favorites. And yeah. Hey, Graham, it's Guys here. That's kind of weird. But yeah, he does that on his second channel because he's got 2 channels. But that's kind of funny. But yeah, so anyway, hopefully your team wins, whichever team it may be. Hopefully we get a green week in the stock market. It's going to be hard to say. We do have CPI in the US coming out. I believe it's coming out on Tuesday, on Valentine's Day. So we'll have to see how that goes. Oh, that's always a scary thing. If hopefully it comes down. Like if their CPI in the US does look good, that could make sure that we stay with the 25 basis points, and that would be a good thing for the market. And I think that would calm the market pretty much down, which is what we're kind of looking for. All right, guys. So anybody have a positive thing that we can end on? I always like to get one of those. So we'll drop that up. Oh, while you're doing that, I have signed up for Blossom, and I'm going to work that out. And we'll talk about it next week. Next week, I'll have it all worked out, and I'll give you all the information on that. So if you guys want to go over to Blossom and, and look at my portfolio that way, that option will be there for you. But a week from Monday, I am dropping my full portfolio again. So I'm doing another one of that quarterly video I do. So we'll do both the TFSA and the RRSP in this one. So that will be awesome. All right. And this is a beautiful one to end on here. Thank you for the very informative and entertaining videos. I really enjoy listening to you while I work too. Awesome. That is awesome. And Tim just snuck this in. Have a great afternoon, everyone, evening. All right, everybody. Take care. We will see you here again next week. Same banana time, same banana channel. And that sounds kind of lame, but I'm going to stick with it. I'm okay with that. Have a great night, everybody.